Welcome back. In Ghana, the attainment of macroeconomic stability remains the central focus for the government of Nana Akufo-Addo, which came into power early this year. Now, Ghana, with its 27 million population, has an outlook that suggests that it can be stronger than ever before. Rating agency Moody's forecast that Ghana's real GDP growth will accelerate to 6.1% in 2017 from 3.5% in 2016, followed by 7.5% in 2018. And in its Middle Africa Strategic Report, EcoBank Research Group see improving fundamentals in Ghana's economy in the third quarter of the year. Let's bring in now a macroeconomic expert and the head of economic research, EcoBank Group London, Gaimin Nonyane. Gaimin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Right, you have a positive short-term outlook for Ghana's economy. What are the key factors driving this positive sentiment?
Well, if we look at a year ago, when we produced our reports, it showed that Ghana was facing major headwinds, and this time it's actually turning a corner. And that's largely, of course, owing to the commodities sector, in particular gold mining and the oil sector. Last year, this time, the oil sector wasn't performing positively because of some production technical difficulties at Tullow Oil's facilities. But now we've seen a turnaround in that. Tullow Oil is now operating at 70% capacity, and that has led to an increase in oil production. And that, coupled with moderate oil prices, has helped to steer the economy in the right direction. We've seen a rise in gold production as well, given ongoing uncertainty in world markets. So people are still holding on to gold as a flight to safety investments. And these factors, in addition to the government's fiscal consolidation efforts, are helping to strengthen the fundamentals in the country.
Now, Ghana is currently grappling with serious youth unemployment problem. Do you think the government is doing enough to tackle the problem?
Well, the government has highlighted plans to embark on a tax reduction policy. Of course, that is a good thing from a business perspective because it should help to encourage employment in that aspect. But we're unlikely to see the benefits trickling down into the profit margins anytime soon. It still has a long way to go. They've only announced that, and the measures that are in place have not yet been fully implemented. So we'll see about 2 to 3 years for that benefits to be realized. And until then, I'm sorry to say that they'll still face huge high unemployment rates in Ghana, which will not be very good for consumer spending.
Now, despite the positive economic outlook, you still see some pressure points that could form a risk. Talk to us about these risk factors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of Ghana's weaknesses is the fiscal situation. Yes, the government is trying to consolidate spending, especially with regards to recurrent expenses, the discretionary expenditure. But at the same time, it's riddled with very high debts, very high debt arrears, which has been as a result of overspending in previous governments. And until it clears that, it's going to face a very challenging economic environment in the short term. At the moment, the debt still remains really high, which means that the debt servicing payments that the government is making, it's very, very, very high, and it gives itself very little fiscal space to spend on other core areas of priority in the country. And then there's also the pressure on the currency. The currency has actually stabilized to some extent, but it's still faced with a lot of headwinds, given that the fiscal deficit, the fiscal accounts and the current accounts remain in deficit. That will continue to put some pressure on the currency as well.
Now, what steps do you think the government of Nana Akufo-Addo should take to actually achieve macroeconomic stability in a short while?
Well, I think it's heading in the right direction. I think it's just that progress remains very slow. There needs to be an acceleration in the economic diversification program. The government continues to rely extensively on the commodities sector. There needs to be a major plan to diversify away from gold mining and cocoa. We're already seeing cocoa prices drop by about over 30% year on year, and that is just not sustainable because the commodities market is very volatile, and the government can't keep relying on the commodities markets in order to boost long-term growth. So there needs to be a move towards more service-oriented activity, perhaps become the IT hub for West Africa, become the telecoms hub for the region. And until then, the economy will continue to be constrained by all these volatile movements and shocks we're seeing in the global commodity markets. There's also a need for them to try to reduce spending at a more rapid rate than currently, because as it stands, even though we're seeing some improvements in the fiscal accounts, it's still high enough. This year alone, we're expecting the deficits to still remain higher than 5%. So that is definitely not good enough for such a vulnerable, a fragile economy.
All right, thank you very much, Guyman, for your time.
Thank you.
Guyman Nonyanin is the head of economic research at Ecobank Group in London. We move on now. The International Monetary Fund is forecasting Mali's economy to grow by 5.3% this year and 5% in 2018 on the back of public capital spending and a strong agricultural sector. The fund, however, says fragile security conditions, however, pose a downside risk to the robust projections. Inflation, meanwhile, is expected to hit 1% by the end of December and 1.4% next year. And finally, Algeria's Tassil Airlines has signed a draft deal worth $294 million with U.S. plane maker Boeing for 3 737-800 aircraft. The 3 155-seat aircraft will be delivered during the second half of 2018. Tassil Airlines, which is owned by state energy firm Sonatrach, currently has a fleet of 12 planes. The draft deal was signed by the head of Tassil Airlines and Boeing's vice president for Africa and Latin America. The deal was won by Boeing after national and international tender. And that's it on the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimize Obi Iwago.